On Monday, the White House is set to release its plan to improve the country's infrastructure. We've learned the four-pronged proposal includes $1.5 trillion in funding and will shorten the permit process to 2 years. It will also invest in rural projects and improve workforce training. Politics reporter for CBS News.com, Kathryn Watson, is in Washington. Kathryn, good to see you.
Thanks for having me on, DeMarco.
All right, the plan calls for $1.5 trillion. Where would this money come from?
Yeah, so $1.5 trillion, like you said, is the total figure that the White House has said is going to be invested in infrastructure. The key to that is, at least it seems, that only $200 billion of that is going to come from the federal government. The rest is expected to come from state and local governments, as well as any private investments that may come along. So I think something that's really key in this plan, DeMarco, is that the federal government, the Trump administration, is really saying, hey, we're going to put some money forward, but state and local governments, you're going to have to come up with the rest. Now, as far as that $200 billion goes that the federal government plans to be investing, or that the Trump administration wants it to invest, that is expected to come from budget cuts in other areas. Now, the Trump White House is also expected to unveil its budget proposal on Monday as well. So we'll see where those cuts may come from then.
All right, Kathryn, how are Democrats likely to react to the idea of private funding?
Sure. Well, infrastructure could be one of those things where there could be some support, some bipartisan support from Democrats. But there really is a sense from Democrats that the federal government is going to need to step up and do more, and that private investment may not necessarily be something that can be heavily relied upon. We've seen a lot of experimentation in public-private partnerships over the last decade or so, I would say, across many states. Some of those revenues are raised through tolling and other methods, which sometimes aren't very popular. So, I think the best hope that we can see for support from Democrats when it comes to relying on a lot of private funding is lukewarm.
Yes, a lot of money on the table. How will projects be chosen and prioritized?
Sure, great question. Well, a key part of the Trump White House plan here is really to give authority, or at least give decision-making back to the states. At least that's the way it's being pitched. So the federal government is basically saying, hey, state and local governments that are willing to invest the most, we are going to come alongside and help you. Now, a key part of the interaction between federal and local and state governments comes in this $100 billion matching incentive fund, as the administration is calling that. And what that comes down to, DeMarco, is the federal government saying, hey, we will invest only up to about 20 cents on the dollar for state and local governments that are embarking on their own programs, projects, whatever it may be. So basically, the federal government is, the Trump administration is saying, hey, if you have something that you really want to work on, we will give you some money to help move it along.
All right, Kathryn, it's no secret that this has been a long-awaited plan by the president and was one of his major campaign promises. Why did it take so long?
Well, a couple of things, DeMarco. For one thing, we already had an infrastructure last June. The thing is, that came, ironically, about the same time that FBI Director James Comey was fired. Of course, that transpired a number of other events in Washington, including the appointment of Robert Mueller. So things got a little chaotic, and that got lost a little bit in the weeds. Critics also said that the president didn't really stay on message as much as he perhaps could have or should have when it came to infrastructure. Then further on down the year, in 2017, we heard that maybe that there would be a proposal later in the year, but tax reform came up, and that became then the #1 priority, especially for Republicans in Congress and for the White House to pass before the end of the year. So that's why we're more than 1 year into the Trump presidency, and we have yet to see anything really substantial on infrastructure yet.
All right, and a final question for you. Will the president be actively promoting this plan?
That is the plan. Now, the president and his cabinet members, we don't know which ones, but will very soon after this plan is rolled out Monday be traveling around the country. You can kind of think back to compare it to what the president has been doing on tax reform, both before and after the passage of the tax overhaul in December. The president really made a point of making speeches, everywhere he possibly could to push the plan. So I think we can expect something similar on infrastructure, and we'll just see what that looks like after the Monday unveiling.
All right, you're right. We'll all have to wait and see. Kathryn Watson in Washington. Kathryn, thank you.
Thank you.